I'm Sarah Faraday, and for part 3 of how to cook a ribeye, I'm going to be showing you how to reverse sear this beautiful ribeye. We're going to be making au gratin cauliflower, and I'm going to show you how I like to prepare asparagus. A couple of the simple marinades I like to make, I really like for ingredients to speak for themselves. You know, this is a beautiful, amazing ribeye, and I like to use things with like umami, where the soy sauce, I'll use some soy sauce if I want to marinate it. Sometimes I'll use oyster sauce mixed with soy sauce to just kind of give a nice depth of flavor. But I really like to let, especially with a ribeye, I like to let the actual ingredient speak for itself. It doesn't need a lot. The flavor is beautiful, so just making sure that it's appropriately salt and peppered. I'm going to go ahead and salt and pepper this ribeye. Now I have the oven preheated to 225. I'm gonna put this in the oven and just kind of forget about it for a couple of hours. I'm gonna bring this to a perfect right around 115 in the center before I pull it out, because I like my steaks medium rare. And then I'm just gonna quick sear it and butter baste it, and it's gonna be perfect in the center every single time as it goes in the oven and reverse sears. Reverse searing is cooking at a low temperature in the oven and then finishing it off with a quick sear, so you get a really nice crust on it. So we're gonna put this in the oven at 225. While the steak is reverse searing, we're gonna get started on our cauliflower casserole. But it will burn very quickly, so make sure we have our liquid right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the flour into the melted butter, and it just takes a little bit. And for just that couple of tablespoons of butter and a couple tablespoons of flour, this is about 2 cups of milk. So a lot of milk, just a little bit of flour and a little bit of butter. Keeping this on that lower heat, it's starting to thicken up quickly. You'll want to work out all of the clumps in here. Just make sure you have a really nice consistency for very creamy sauce. The water is boiling, so we're going to go ahead and add our cauliflower. Careful not to let it splash up on you. And it's really only going to sit in here for a few minutes because we want it to just soften up so it bakes faster. And back to our sauce. As you can see, this is starting to come together. We still have a little bit of lumps, but that's really normal, so just keep working with it. Now that this is coming together, I'm going to add about a cup of cream cheese. You can see the consistency of this is really starting to come together into a really nice cheese sauce. And then when we add that really melty, stringy cheddar cheese to it, it's going to be amazing. Don't be afraid to play around with the consistency of this sauce. You know, some people like it a little bit on the thinner side, and some people like it on the very creamy side. So it's really just personal preference. Now that the cauliflower has been boiling for a couple minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off, and I'm gonna strain it because we don't want it to cook all the way through. Since we're still gonna bake it, we don't want it to be mushy, but we just want it to be really very al dente. We don't want it to be cooked all the way through. So we'll go ahead and strain the cauliflower to get it stop cooking. Now I'm going to go ahead and add about 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese. I'm using mild cheddar here. And that is going to be so good. You see it starting to melt into the sauce. I'm gonna put this on really low heat and just let the cheese work its way into the cream sauce. While we let this cheese sauce continue to come together, I'm gonna go ahead and crisp up some bacon, because there is nothing like a little crispy bacon to top this thing off. All right, there we go. Now our sauce is ready. So we're gonna go ahead and go over and we're gonna top the cauliflower with it and then wait for the bacon to finish, and then we're gonna add that on top as well. So. Make sure to distribute it across the cauliflower nicely. It's so cheesy. This will all come together so nicely as it bakes. I have the oven preheating at about 350 right now. Smooth that out, make sure everything is coated. Beautiful. Okay, cauliflower is so great, it's so inexpensive, so you can feed a really large crowd. And this whole dish, I mean, you can make it in 45 minutes. It really is a crowd pleaser. It's not low in calories, but it's delicious. Now that this is cooled off just a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and top this with that yummy crispy bacon. Perfect. So now I'm gonna put this in the oven at 350 for around 30 minutes. All right. Now this has been in the oven reverse searing for just over an hour. It's amazing to cook steaks this way, especially if they're really thick. You know, you got a lot going on, your kids are running around, you can just kind of put it in there, and especially at that lower temperature, if you're doing it around 200, I mean, you have to check on it, but it's a really effective way to cook a really thick, beautiful steak, get a nice crust on it, but still be able to go about your life. So I'm gonna turn the heat on pretty high because we just wanna really get a good coating on it, or we just wanna really get a good crust on it. It's just gonna be a minute on each side and then this will be done. Okay, go ahead and add it to the pan. Beautiful, so it's getting a nice crust on this side. Now I'm gonna add just a few sprigs of rosemary and a few sprigs of thyme, but be careful when you put the thyme in. When it hits the butter, it really pops and comes at you. With that in there, go ahead and tilt the pan. I'm gonna move these herbs on top of the steak now that they've sat in the butter and released some of their oils. And then I'm just gonna douse the steak in the butter. Make sure that we're getting that nice crust and check. Beautiful, and it really does take just a minute. This is also good too because you don't want to leave it in there for too long to let your butter burn. So it's getting that really nice flavor and that really beautiful crust. So we're gonna go ahead and flip. Look at that, beautiful. We'll add our herbs back on top. Perfect. All right, now we have this beautiful crust on both sides. We're gonna go ahead and take it off the heat. Again, it's just a few minutes because we're not cooking the steak. We've already seared it. We've already gotten it close to the temperature we want it inside. So we are just getting that beautiful crust on the outside. Transfer it, let it rest. This is especially important. So we're gonna let it rest for at least 10 minutes. This is done. Pull off of it. All right, and we're gonna let that cool down just a little bit before we top it with chives. And while everything is resting, let's saute some amazing, really pretty purple asparagus. And that's just like that, just a really quick saute. This is my favorite way to eat asparagus. And if you really want a pro tip for finishing off your steaks, after they've had a chance to rest, top them with Maldon salt. What it's gonna do, because it's thicker, it's really gonna act like just kind of a flavor conduit. It's almost like pop rocks on your steak, which is kind of cool. And that is how I make a perfect medium rare reverse sear ribeye, cheesy cauliflower casserole, and purple asparagus. See you in the next video.